Francesco Bagnaia won back-to-back MotoGP World Championships with Ducati. He was the face of their project, the proof it worked, the rider who carried the number one when it mattered most. And then Ducati decided he wouldn't be part of their 2027 lineup. So what does it say about a manufacturer when they move on from the champion they built everything around? And what did Aprilia see in that decision that everyone else in the paddock missed? This matters because of what Bagnaia actually is inside MotoGP. He is not a rider who inherited a dominant bike and rode it safely to 2 titles. He is the rider Ducati trusted to absorb pressure, carry the development direction, and explain where the limit of that machine really was. 2 years in a row, back to back, built on a foundation of loyalty and trust that Ducati spent years constructing. And all of it was built on one assumption: that delivering championships would be enough to keep your seat. But the moment the calculation shifted, inside Borgo Panigale, that assumption broke. And here's what makes that break so significant. Bagnaia didn't just deliver results, he delivered language. He gave Ducati's engineers the feedback architecture they needed to keep pushing the bike forward. Lap after lap, test after test, season after season. That is not something you replace by signing faster names. That is institutional knowledge, and it lives in the relationship between a rider and his engineer, not in the contract. So when Bagnaia said publicly that he had already decided his future, that wasn't a negotiating position. That was a man who had already read the room and understood what the silence meant. I don't think the decision was made in public. It was made months earlier, behind closed doors, and confirmed when Ducati stopped fighting to keep it quiet. Let's have a look at what actually happened and what it triggered. We know for a fact that Ducati committed to Marc Marquez and Pedro Acosta as their 2027 pairing, 2 riders who demand control, 2 alpha projects sharing one garage. That is not a lineup built for stability. That is a bet on raw firepower at the expense of the foundation that won them everything. And Bagnaia was the price of that bet. The decision didn't come from weakness. Ducati aren't panicking, but they are gambling in a way that opens a door they will not easily close. 2 riders who both see themselves as the development reference don't naturally converge. They pull in opposite directions. That pressure doesn't break teams immediately, but it accumulates in ways that are very hard to reverse once the dynamic has set. But the story doesn't end there, because Aprilia walked straight through that open door. They didn't wait, they didn't watch and assess. Aprilia locked Bagnaia before the USGP main race had even started. A deal reported to include a rare 2+2 structure running through 2030, with Bagnaia holding the performance clause. Think about what that structure tells you. That is not a manufacturer rescuing a displaced rider. That is a manufacturer handing real, long-term power to a proven champion and betting an entire regulation cycle on the combination. Can you ignore what that says about how seriously Aprilia read this moment? And can you ignore what it says about how long they had been ready for it? This is why the timing matters. Aprilia didn't react to a rumour. Bagnaia himself said when asked about his future, "I just decided," short answer. But it says everything. The door was already closing, and Aprilia had their hand on the next one before it shut. That kind of readiness is the product of months of internal alignment, not days of opportunistic phone calls. Let's not forget what the grid consequences actually looked like. One decision inside Borgo Panigale triggered a chain reaction across the entire field. Acosta shifts into the factory Ducati seat. Alex Marquez moves to KTM. Bagnaia is pushed completely off the board. 3 major moves, all downstream of a single internal call. And I don't think people have fully processed how much influence Ducati exercised over a grid they don't officially govern. But when you move that many pieces at once, you lose control of where some of them land. And Bagnaia landing at Aprilia is exactly the kind of consequence you cannot fully model in advance. Aprilia's position before any of this was already worth paying attention to. Marco Bezzecchi locked in on a multi-year deal. Jorge Martin and Bezzecchi delivering back-to-back 1-2s in Brazil and Austin. And after COTA, Bagnaia himself said Aprilia were ahead, quite far ahead, I don't think riders say that casually. They read the stopwatch before anything else. And more importantly, they read the direction of a project. Aprilia is selling proof, not a dream. And if I were Aprilia, I would treat Bagnaia's own words as confirmation that the timing was exactly right. And oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, Bagnaia isn't arriving alone. Cristian Gabarrini, the race engineer who sat on his pit wall for both World Championships, the man who built the feedback language that made those titles possible, is reported to be leaving Ducati with him. Same signals, same language, same references, same trust built across 2 title campaigns. Ducati didn't just lose a rider, they lost the system that made that rider a champion, and that system is now sitting on Aprilia's side of the garage, pointed directly back at Borgo Panigale. So when Ducati look across the pit lane in 2027, they won't just see Bagnaia, they'll see everything they built, rebuilt against them. There are 2 possible scenarios from here, and I think one of them is significantly more likely than people currently expect. The first is that Ducati's gamble pays off. Marquez and Acosta deliver from race 1 in the new era. The 850 cubic centimetre machine gets built around their combined demands, and Borgo Panigale enters 2027 with the highest ceiling on the grid. I don't think that scenario should be dismissed. Both riders are generational talents, and Ducati's engineering depth doesn't collapse because one engineer left. But that version only works if the internal dynamic stays functional. And 2 riders who both need to be the reference is a pressure point that does not get easier over time. On the other hand, Bagnaia arrives at Aprilia already operational. Same engineer, same understanding, same feedback language developed across years of championship racing, while Marquez and Acosta begin the process of aligning with each other and learning a new machine. Bagnaia walks in on day 1 with continuity that cuts the adaptation curve in half. Add the 850 cubic centimetres reset, a clean slate where no manufacturer holds a built-in advantage, and the combination of a proven champion, his championship engineer, and a bike being shaped around him from the ground up becomes a structural threat to everything Ducati built. At the end of the day, the most dangerous rider in MotoGP isn't always the one with the best machinery. It's the one with something to prove and a manufacturer fully committed to helping him prove it. Ducati may have built the most explosive lineup on paper, but they also wrote the motivation that could beat it and handed it directly to the team that now wants to beat them most. Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.